The sun was just starting to rise in the small town of Meadowrun. A few birds chirped in the trees. The streets were quiet. People were still in their beds, holding on to the last moments of sleep. In a small garage near the edge of town, Tom wiped the oil from his hands and looked up at the sky. He had been fixing an old truck since before dawn. Tom was a simple man. He liked quiet mornings, warm tea, and machines that made sense. His garage wasn't fancy, but it was honest work. He enjoyed solving problems with tools and time. Life didn't surprise him much until that day. It started with a sound. Not loud, not sharp. It was like the sky itself took a deep breath and held it. Birds stopped singing. Wind stopped blowing. Even the engine in front of Tom gave a soft pop and died as if it too was curious. Then he saw it. A silver shape floated above the field beyond the trees. It didn't fall, it didn't fly, it simply appeared like it had always been there, but was only now being noticed. Smooth, round, and glowing slightly, it hovered without a single sound. Tom stepped outside. His hands were still covered in grease, but he didn't notice. All across town, people came out of their houses. Cars stopped in the streets. Phones pointed to the sky. A low hum started, not from the ship, but from everywhere around it. Like the air itself was singing, then the ship slowly lowered. It touched the ground without bending a single blade of grass. A soft white light spread from underneath it, forming a perfect circle. And then the door opened. From the light stepped a tall figure. Not human, but not frightening. She was calm, graceful, with skin like moonlight and eyes that seemed to reflect stars. She wore a robe that flowed like water, and her long hair floated as if caught in a breeze that wasn't there. People gasped. Cameras rolled. Some took a step back. But not Tom. He didn't move. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. The woman looked directly at him, though many stood between them. Then something strange happened. The crowd parted. Da-da-da-da-da, but like they knew she wasn't looking for them. She walked slowly toward Tom, never breaking eye contact. Tom's heart raced, but his feet stayed firm. He didn't know why, but something inside told him to wait. She stopped in front of him. For a moment, nothing happened. Then she held out her hand. Tom looked at it. Her fingers were long and glowing softly. Hesitant, he reached out and placed his hand in hers. It was warmer than he expected. They stood like that for a moment. Then another 10 seconds passed, and 20. The world was silent. Even the wind had stopped moving. All eyes were on them. 30 seconds. 40. Tom felt something pass between them. Not a voice, not words, but something deeper. Like a quiet song or an old memory he didn't know he had, her eyes never blinked. They shimmered with something ancient and kind. 50 seconds. A full minute. Then she spoke. Her voice was soft, like water over smooth stones. "The match is complete," she said, before Tom could speak. Before he could ask what she meant, the woman released his hand and stepped back. She gave a slow, respectful nod. Then she turned and walked back toward the ship. The ship light surrounded her again. The door closed. The ship rose into the sky, slowly at first, then faster until it disappeared with a shimmer. Silence fell once more. Then the world rushed back in. People shouted. Cameras flashed. News crews swarmed. But Tom just stood there, staring at his hand. His fingers tingled. In his palm, a faint symbol began to glow, a shape like two threads crossing and tying into a knot. It didn't hurt, but it pulsed softly like a heartbeat. That night, every major channel showed the moment on repeat. "Alien woman chooses Earthman," the headlines read, scientists guessed. Experts debated, but no one had answers, except maybe Tom. And even he didn't understand yet. He sat alone in his garage, the symbol on his hand still glowing. He remembered her eyes. It's not cold, not dangerous, just sure. As if she had waited a long time for that moment, Tom whispered to himself, "What match?" The stars outside twinkled quietly. And somewhere, far beyond what anyone could see, something ancient had been set into motion, something that could not be undone. He sat in his garage, the glowing symbol on his palm quietly pulsing. Every few seconds it faded, then glowed again like a heartbeat. It didn't hurt. It didn't burn. It reminded him that something strange had happened, something no one could explain. The world was different now. The news showed his face everywhere. The chosen one. One headline read, "Earth's first contact," said another. Reporters camped outside his house. Scientists called. Some even begged to run tests, but Tom stayed quiet. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt confused. What did the matches complete mean? Why him? He was just a mechanic. He'd fixed old trucks. He didn't build rockets or study stars. He had no idea how to deal with aliens. By morning, the symbol had spread slightly. Now it reached his wrist with thin lines, like threads or roots. When he touched machines, his old radio, a screwdriver, even his truck, they reacted. The radio changed channels without him turning the dial. The screwdriver hummed in his hand. The truck engine started on its own when he stood nearby. Tom didn't tell anyone. He wore gloves and kept to himself, but he couldn't ignore the feeling that something was coming. And then, on the third night, she returned. The lights flickered in his garage. His tools shook gently. A soft hum filled the air, the same sound he remembered from the ship. "Hey!" Tom stepped outside and saw it again, the silver shape floating above the ground, glowing softly. The door opened. The same alien woman stepped out. She wore a new robe, this one darker, like deep water. Her eyes found Tom at once, and she smiled gently. Tom didn't run. He walked toward her. This time, she didn't take his hand. Instead, she placed hers over her heart and bowed slightly. "You are calm," she said softly. "This is good." Tom nodded. "I've had some time to think. Do you feel the mark?" He held up his hand and showed her. "It's growing." She stepped closer. "It is not a mark. It is a thread. You are now connected to the loom." Tom frowned. "What is the loom?" She looked up at the stars. "It is old. Older than stars. It weaves the pattern of life. Every species, every world is a thread. The loom watches, it waits. And when the time is right, it tests." Tom took a deep breath. "So, Earth is being tested?" "Yes," she said. "And you are the match. But why me? I'm not special. You are honest, steady, curious. The loom does not choose strength or knowledge. It chooses balance." Tom sat on a rock nearby. He rubbed his forehead. "This is a lot to take in." She nodded. "It always is." They sat in silence for a moment. The ship behind her glowed gently, casting long shadows. The night was cool and quiet, except for the soft hum of the loom's energy. Tom asked, "What happens now?" She looked at him carefully. "Earth has 7 days. In that time, the loom will study. It will look at your choices, at your thoughts, your fears, your hopes. It will learn, and if it doesn't like what it sees..." She hesitated. "Then the thread is cut." Tom felt a chill. "What does that mean?" "It's disconnection," she said simply. "No contact, no growth. The loom moves on." Tom stood. "So we get one chance?" "One chance," she said, "but not alone. I am your guide." He stared at her. "What's your name?" She seemed surprised by the question. "I am Ari." "Nice to meet you, Ari," Tom said. "I guess we've got work to do." She smiled again. "Yes, and little time." The next day, Tom finally opened his door to the scientists. They came with scanners, notebooks, and quiet voices. They ran tests on the glowing thread on his hand, but their machines behaved strangely. Some shut down, others showed random patterns. One simply beeped and never stopped. Ari stood nearby, watching them with a calm expression. She didn't speak unless asked. The scientist called her Subject Alpha, but Tom introduced her properly. "This is Ari," he said. "She's not a subject. She's a guest." That earned him a nod from her. Later, Tom asked Ari why she had picked him in front of everyone. "Why not explain things quietly?" he asked. "The loom sees clearly when hearts are open," she said. That moment in front of all was a window. Tom nodded. He was starting to understand. The loom wasn't just watching his actions. It was watching his world, his people, how they treated the unknown, how they handled the impossible. That night the mark grew again. It now reached halfway up his arm, glowing softly in the dark. He dreamt of patterns, long lines of light weaving through endless space. He saw other threads, some bright, others broken, felt pulled in every direction, like he was part of something much larger. When he woke up, he was standing outside his window, watching the stars. "You saw it," she said without turning. "I think so," Tom replied. "The loom," she nodded. "It is listening." Tom looked at his hand again. "So what do I do?" "Be true," Ari said. "To yourself, to your people. Let the loom see the beauty in your chaos." Tom gave a small smile. "That's not going to be easy." She looked at him. "That's why it chose you." Tom had never been inside a spaceship before, expected blinking lights, buttons, and strange noises. But Ari's ship was nothing like that. It was quiet. The walls were smooth and silver, curving gently like the inside of a shell. There were no visible controls, no seats, no sharp corners. The air smelled fresh, like a forest after rain. A soft light glowed from the ceiling, but Tom couldn't tell where it came from. Ari walked ahead of him, calm and silent. "The ship is alive," she said, turning to him. "It listens. It feels." Tom raised an eyebrow. "It's watching us?" "Yes," Ari replied. "But not to judge, only to learn." Tom followed her through a long hallway. The walls shimmered slightly as they passed, like ripples in water. His arm, marked now with glowing thread-like lines up to his shoulder, tingled every time he touched the wall. Finally, they entered a round chamber. In the center floated a glowing sphere, spinning slowly, filled with hundreds of tiny lights connected by moving lines. "The loom?" Tom asked. Ari nodded. "A small part of it. A thread reader. It shows the pattern of your world." Tom stepped closer. The lights inside the sphere moved like dancers. Some pulsed with strong light. Others flickered. He watched lines connect and break, form again, and stretch far across the space inside the globe. Ari spoke softly. "Every life is a thread. The loom does not see people the way you do. It sees how each thread moves, how it connects, how it shapes others." Tom stared into the sphere. "It's like a living map." "Yes," Ari said. "Your thread is bright, strong, but new. The loom is curious about your kind." "Why now?" Tom asked. "Why visit Earth at this moment?" Ari looked at him gently. "Because Earth is changing, fast. Your people create quickly, grow quickly, but you also forget quickly. You build high, but the ground shakes beneath you. The loom watches when a pattern becomes uncertain." Tom didn't know what to say. He looked at the spinning lights again. "And if the pattern breaks?" Ari was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Then the thread fades." Tom felt the weight of those words. The loom wasn't here to destroy or punish. It was here to understand. But if it could not understand, it might let go. He turned back to Ari. "So what do I do?" "Show it we're worth saving." She nodded. "Yes, but not by force. Not with plans or speeches. Just by being human. Let the loom see your heart." Tom rubbed his face. "That's a lot of pressure." She gave a small smile. "That is why the loom does not test all. Only the few who carry balance. Still step forward? That is rare." Suddenly the room shifted. The lights in the sphere dimmed. The walls rippled. New voice filled the space, not with sound, but inside Tom's mind. It was soft, deep, and strange. Another thread approaches. Ari turned quickly. It's too soon. Before Tom could ask what that meant, the wall behind them melted away, forming a wide window. Outside the ship, space stretched out like a painting, but it wasn't Earth's sky. It was full of stars, planets, and glowing shapes Tom had never seen. Floating nearby was another ship. It was darker, more angular. It pulsed red at the edges and had long, sharp wings like a bird of prey. Tom stepped closer to the window. "Who are they?" Ari's face was serious. "A race once tested by the loom. They failed." Tom swallowed, and now they're back. "They come to warn," Ari said. "Or to stop." The other ship sent out a beam of light, didn't attack. Instead, it sent a message of voice in the room, clear and slow. Human, leave the loom. Its test is a trap. It only takes. It never gives. We passed, and we're forgotten. Tom turned to Ari. Is this true? Ari lowered her eyes. They chose to change the loom. They wanted it to follow their ways. They forced, not listened. The loom did not accept their thread. The voice from the dark ship spoke again. You are still early. Break the thread now. Be free or be forgotten like us. Tom felt torn. The mark on his arm glowed brightly now. The room seemed to hum with energy. Why warn? Me? He asked. The voice answered slowly. Because we once stood where you stand, and we were proud. Now we float far from all patterns, watching, waiting. The ship outside slowly drifted away, vanishing into the stars. No attack came, no damage. Just a warning. The room fell silent. Tom looked at Ari. So who do I believe? Eyes. Only you can choose. That is part of the test. Tom sat down, his mind full of thoughts. He had seen the loom's beauty, but now he saw its cost. Others had been tested before, some had failed. Some had walked away. He looked down at his arm. The thread mark now pulsed calmly, like it was listening. I don't want to walk away, he said softly. Ari nodded. Then let the loom see you. As you are. Tom stood. Let's show it everything. It's not just our good side, our full story. Ari smiled. That is the human way. And the ship moved forward, floating gently through space, carrying Earth's thread into the center of the loom. The ship moved through space with silence and grace. Tom stood near the large window, watching stars drift by like snowflakes. He had never imagined this, leaving Earth, flying into space. Being part of something so big it made his world feel small. Ari stood beside him, calm as always, her silver eyes glowed softly, but even she looked more thoughtful than usual. Where are we going now? Tom asked, his voice quiet. Ari pointed to a distant light brighter than the others. It pulsed slowly like a living heart. To the center of the loom, she said, where the pattern begins. Tom stared at the glowing point. Will I meet it? No one meets the loom as you meet a person, Ari replied, but you will feel it. It will feel you. Tom's arm, now fully marked with glowing threads, felt warm. The pattern on his skin shifted gently, changing shapes like flowing water. Does it hurt others when the loom watches them? Tom asked. He still thought about the dark ship, the warning, the sadness in that voice. Not if they open themselves, Ari said, but if they hide or lie. The pattern becomes weak, then the thread breaks. Tom nodded slowly. Then I'll show it everything, even the parts I'm not proud of. Ari looked at him. That is rare. Most show only their bright side. But Earth isn't perfect, Tom said. We argue. We make mistakes. We forget kindness sometimes. But we also hope. We build again. Help each other when it matters. Ari smiled. Then maybe your thread is stronger than it looks. Suddenly, the ship slowed. A soft chime echoed through the room. The lights dimmed. Outside the window, the loom appeared. It wasn't a thing, it was a place, a field of floating light. Stretching far in every direction, millions of threads, glowing in every color, crossed and twisted like a giant web. Some threads burned bright, some flickered, some were broken, hanging loose. Tom stared, speechless. Each thread moved gently, joining others, breaking apart, weaving together again. And in the very center, one glowing thread began to rise. It was new, it was Earth. That's us, Tom whispered. Ari nodded. The loom is watching. The room around them changed. The walls faded. Soft wind blew, though there were no windows. Open. Tom felt something touch his thoughts. Something deep and quiet. Like a question with no words. It wants to see me, he realized. Ari placed her hand over her heart. Let it see. Tom closed his eyes. At first, he saw memories: his town, his garage, his tools. Then he saw people, his neighbors, his old teacher, the children who waved at him each morning. He remembered helping a stranger fix a broken bicycle. He remembered comforting a friend who had lost his job. But then, deeper things came. He saw the time he ignored a person asking for help. The time he walked away from a problem because it was too big. He saw moments of anger, doubt, fear, and he showed them all. He didn't hide anything. The loom didn't judge. It didn't pull away. Instead, the thread on his arm grew warmer, brighter. The loom accepted the truth. Then something amazing happened. Tom's thread reached out. It touched other threads from Earth. He saw people across the world. A girl planting trees. A doctor treating a patient without asking for money. A teacher staying late to help a struggling child. A boy sharing his only meal. Each thread pulsed. Each act, big or small, glowed brightly. The loom began to weave them together. Tom opened his eyes. His heart was full. "It's not just me," he said. "It's everyone. The loom is watching all of us." Ari nodded, her eyes shining. "Yes, you are the match, but not the pattern alone. A thread is part of many." Suddenly the loom shimmered. The light shifted. A new line appeared, one that had never been there before, a connection. Earth's thread had been added to the loom. The ship filled with soft light. The chime rang again, but this time it was joyful, like a welcome. Tom looked at Ari. "We passed," she smiled. "No, you joined." He frowned slightly. "What's the difference?" Ari touched his shoulder.
Us.
"The loom is not a test you pass or fail. It is a question you answer." And your answer was honest. Tom laughed softly. "So now what happens?" "You will return," Ari said. "Your world will grow. The loom will guide from far away. One day you may guide others." Tom looked back at the shining web of light. "It's beautiful," he said. Ari stepped beside him. "So is your world, even when it forgets." The ship turned. The stars shifted. The path home opened like a soft road of light. Tom felt the thread on his arm slowly fade, though its warmth stayed in his chest. Earth was waiting, and this time, the loom would be watching. The ship returned to Earth in silence, moving like a breeze through the sky. Tom stood by the window as his home came into view. The blue oceans, the green lands, the clouds floating gently over cities, it all looked familiar, yet different. He had changed, and now he saw his world with new eyes. Ari stood beside him. Her robe shimmered with a new color, soft gold, matching the glow on Tom's skin. Though the thread-like pattern had faded from his arm, he could still feel its warmth. It lived inside him now, quiet but present. "You are home," Ari said gently. Tom nodded. "Yes, but I don't know what to say to them." "They will ask questions," Ari said. "But you don't need to answer all. Just be true." The ship landed quietly in a large open field near the town. There were no flashing lights, no loud noise, just a soft hum and a quiet breeze. Door opened. Tom stepped out first. He expected fear or panic, but instead he saw people waiting. His neighbors, reporters, scientists, children holding signs. Some were smiling, others were silent, but all eyes were on him. Tom raised his hand. Slowly in greeting, "I'm back," he said. No one moved for a moment. Then a small girl walked forward. She held a flower in her hand. She offered it to Tom. "For the Star Lady," she said shyly. Tom took the flower and smiled. "Thank you." Ari stepped out next. The crowd gasped softly, but no one ran. Ari bowed her head slightly, placing her hand over her chest. "I come in peace," she said clearly. "The match is complete." The scientists stepped forward. One of them, an older man with gray hair, looked at Tom with wonder. "Did it work?" he asked. Tom looked at the sky. "Yes, the loom saw us. It listened." More questions came, but Tom did not speak much that day. Instead, he let Ari explain. She told them about the loom not as a machine or a weapon, but as a listener, a watcher of life, a weaver of all that connects. Tom watched the people. Some were confused, some were afraid, but many were curious. Many wanted to learn more. And that gave him hope. That evening, Tom returned to his small house. The garage looked just the same, but now everything felt different. The tools on the bench, the old truck, even the quiet hum of the fridge inside. Ari walked through the doorway behind him. "You are still you," she said. Tom sat down in his old chair, "But I feel bigger, like I've been stretched." She nodded. "You have seen more, and once seen, it cannot be unseen." There was a pause. Then Tom asked, "How many worlds are part of the loom?" "Thousands," Ari replied. "Maybe more. Some near, some far, some simple like yours. Others strange with no words, no bodies, just thought and sound. Have any ever left the loom?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Some tried to take instead of give. They were not ready. Their threads faded." Tom was quiet. Ari sat across from him. Earth still has a long journey. This was just the first step. Tom looked around. "So what happens next?" "You live," she said. "You teach. You show others what it means to be seen. And you listen in return." Over the next few days, the world began to change. News of the loom spread, not as a warning, but as a wonder. People shared stories, acts of kindness, quiet hopes, new questions. Children drew pictures of threads and stars. Artists painted glowing patterns across city walls. Scientists studied the energy that had once marked Tom's arm, and leaders, some proud, some humbled, began to ask, "What now?" Tom didn't try to lead the world. He just told his story, in simple words, in quiet talks. Sometimes on television, sometimes on a bench outside his garage. Ari stayed close. She didn't speak often. But when she did, people listened. One afternoon, a group of students came too. "Visit," one boy asked. "Can we talk to the loom too?" Tom smiled. "You already are. Every time you're honest, every time you care." Another girl asked, "What if someone makes a mistake?" Ari answered that one. "Mistakes are part of the pattern. What matters is how the thread continues." The children nodded, understanding. More than they realized, as weeks passed, something gentle began to happen. People slowed down just a little. They looked at each other longer. They helped more, argued less. Not perfectly, but enough to notice. The loom didn't speak again, not in words, but some said they felt it. In dreams, in silence, in the feeling that they were not alone. And Tom? He kept working in his garage, fixing engines, helping neighbors, watering his garden. Now sometimes he would pause and look at the stars. One night Ari stood beside him under the sky. "You have changed the pattern," she said. Tom looked up. "No, we have," she smiled. "Then the loom will remember your thread forever." Weeks turned into months, and Earth had begun to feel the changes. Not from force, not from fear, but from choice. Tom watched it happen every day. The town he lived in now had a quiet glow, not from lights, but from people. The baker smiled more. Children played outside longer. People said thank you like they meant it. It wasn't perfect. There were still problems, still busy streets and arguments. But the difference was clear. People had started to listen. To one another, to something greater. The loom had not spoken again, yet its presence was felt. Some nights people said they saw faint threads of light in the sky, like soft trails of stars weaving above Earth. Scientists tried to explain it as new kinds of space dust or energy, but Tom knew, so did Ari. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Tom stood outside his garage. The light was golden, and the air was still. Ari stood beside him, holding a simple wooden object she had carved, a small symbol of a thread. Wrapped in a circle, "It is time," she said quietly. Tom looked at her. "Time for what?" Ari looked up at the sky. "To visit the next thread." Tom frowned. "You're leaving?" She nodded slowly. "The loom has chosen another world. Another match must be made." He felt a deep pull in his chest, a mix of sadness and understanding. "But you just got here." "My thread crossed with yours for a reason," she said gently. "But threads do not stay tangled forever. They move, stretch, and sometimes they part." Tom looked down at the carving in her hands. "What about Earth? You are ready?" she said. "The thread is strong, and you are not alone." Was silent for a moment, then asked, "Can we still talk to the loom?" Aerie smiled. "You always could. But now, you know how to listen." That night, the town gathered to say goodbye. No big speeches, no big shows. Just people, standing. Together under the stars. Aerie stood in the middle, holding the carved symbol, and simply bowed. "I carry your pattern with me," she said, "so I leave mine with you." A child stepped forward, the same girl who had once given Aerie a flower. Small stone, painted with blue and green swirls. "To remember Earth," the girl whispered. Aerie took it gently. "I will." Then, without a sound, the ship lifted into the sky, like a falling leaf moving backward. The people watched until it vanished into the stars. Tom stood there long after the others had gone home. The stars blinked above him. The world was quiet. He felt something inside, not emptiness, but something like a steady light.
No.
The loom was still there, and now it was part of Earth. Over the next months, Tom continued to live as before, fixing machines, helping neighbors, planting flowers in the empty yard beside his house, but something inside him had changed. He began writing, not stories about aliens or ships, but stories about connection, about kindness, about how small actions could ripple across a world like a thread in water. People read his words. Some even began their own journals. Others started gardens, shared tools, taught one another new skills. No one called it a movement. It just happened. In cities, schools began teaching about the loom, not as a science or religion, but as a way of seeing the threads between people, seeing that every action, no matter how small, was part of something larger. And then, one day, something remarkable happened. A message arrived. Not from space, not from Earth's leaders, but from a small village far across the ocean. A girl had seen the threads in her dream. She wrote, "I saw the lines in the sky. I followed one and found a story. It told me that I matter, that my voice matters. I told others. Now we all draw threads on our walls." Tom read the message 3 times. He smiled. The loom was still listening, and now, so were people. That evening, he went to his old bench behind the garage and looked at the sky. No ships, no bright lights, just stars, and, if he looked closely, the faintest glow of silver lines. Crossing the sky, he placed his hand on his chest. "I see you," he whispered. The wind moved softly through the trees, and somewhere, across the universe, the loom weaved another thread into the pattern. The world kept turning. Months passed. Then years. Tom grew older, and so did the world around him. Cities became brighter. Not just with lights, but with hope. The idea of the loom had spread far beyond his little town. People didn't just talk about it anymore. They lived it. They painted it on buildings, carved it into stone, taught it in schools. The thread once, just a glowing line on one man's arm, had now become part of many hearts. Tom still lived in the same house. His garage still smelled of old tools and oil. But now there were more visitors than machines. People came from all over the world not to ask about spaceships, but to ask about the feeling, that feeling of being connected. "Do you still feel it?" they asked. Tom would smile, place a hand over his chest, and say every day, even in silence. Children often sat on his porch listening as he told simple stories. Not about the ship or Aerie or glowing lights, but about kindness, patience, and how even the smallest act could stretch across the stars. Then, one quiet morning, something unusual happened. A silver thread appeared in the sky. It wasn't bright. It didn't flash, but it was clear. Thin as a hair, stretching from the sky down to the earth. Barely visible, except in the early sunlight. People noticed. Phones recorded. News channels reported. Scientists measured. But Tom just walked out of his house and looked up with calm eyes. He knew what it was. He felt it in his bones. He walked toward the field where Ares' ship had once landed. He wasn't alone. Hundreds of people followed, quiet and curious. And in the center of that field something shimmered. Not a ship, a doorway, soft and round, like a ripple in the air. Tom stepped forward. A voice came not from outside, but from within him. The pattern continues. A new match must be made. He closed his eyes. Why me again? You were the first, but not the last. The wind brushed his face. He turned and looked back at the crowd. Young, old, scientists, farmers, teachers, children. They stood side by side, silent, watching then. One girl stepped forward. She couldn't have been more than 10. She had a book in her hand, Tom's book, the one with the thread on the cover. She looked up at him and said, "Can I go?" Knelt beside her. "Do you feel the loom in your heart?" She nodded. Then maybe he smiled. "It's your time." The doorway pulsed softly, as if listening. Tom stood. The girl walked toward the light. Without a sound, she stepped through. The doorway disappeared. The sky went still, and the people waited. Tom turned back to them and said, "The thread never ends. It just changes hands." That evening, people sat in circles across the town. They lit candles. They told stories. They sang soft songs, new ones about stars and light and peace. And though no ship had come and no alien had returned, Edevro knew something important had happened. Far away, somewhere among the stars. A young girl now stood where Tom once stood. She would see the loom. She would be the match. And Earth had. Just in its second thread, Tom returned to his house. He sat by the window and watched the night sky. He could not see the loom with his eyes, but he could feel it, like a steady beat in his chest. He thought of Aerie. He wondered where she was. Now, he smiled, imagining her watching from another world. Maybe holding the painted stone the little girl had given her, he whispered, "We remember." Years later, when Tom was gone, people still spoke his name with care. His garage became a small place of learning. It's not just about machines, but about connection. His journals were kept safe in a library under a glass dome, open to all. The little girl, now grown, returned one day. She brought no ship, no tools, just stories. She told of floating cities, of beings made of music, of colors that spoke like voices. And most of all, she told of the loom, how it stretched across everything, touching not only minds, but hearts. She told Earth, "We are not alone, but we are strong. We are part of the pattern." She placed a new carving on Tom's old bench. It was shaped like a spiral, made from starlight stone, and beneath it, she wrote, "One thread began it. All threads continue it." That night, people around the world looked up and saw a new thread in the sky. A third one, thinner than before, but strong. The pattern was growing, and Earth, at once small and silent, now glowed gently within the loom. Not just as a planet, but as a voice that listened, a voice that gave, a voice that would forever be part of the thread.